Are you recording straight away? Jesus, straight into it, mate.
Yeah, well, I thought it might be a little bit more natural than me mumbling a start.
Do you know how to edit all this stuff then to make it look good?
Yeah, I'm going to ask my 11-year-old daughter.
All right, we'll just go natural then, mate.
It'd be better if neither of us said anything stupid, and then I don't have to edit it. But
I can't guarantee that, mate. I can't guarantee that, but I'll try my best. It's quite dark in here. Can you see me all right? I don't. If I put the light on, everything just glares.
No, it's good. That beard has grown in immensity.
Thank you, mate. That plus darkness is a great leveler. It's like being in a nightclub at sort of 10 to 2. It sort of just makes me look better than I really am. So I like to keep the lights down as low as possible.
Very good, very good. Anyway, thank you for agreeing to do this.
No worries, mate.
So I'll set the scene and then I'll get cracking asking you some questions. But obviously it's World Mental Health Day on Saturday. Is it Saturday?
Saturday, mate. 10th of October.
10th of October. It's something that is close to both of our hearts.
Yep.
And I wanted to do something to try and raise awareness. And my grand plan was to convince you to tell your story to the world.
Yeah. Well, you've got me on Zoom, mate. So let's see how we go. But yeah, so, as you know, it's a really important topic to me. So I'm more than happy to help if I can.
And I'll tell you why my grand plan was to ask you. A couple of reasons. One is you're a world champion, and I'll ask you a little bit more about that because people might not know. But I don't know any other world champions. You're a man mountain, and you've always got a smile on your face in the office. So if people didn't know your story, they would have no idea that you had any idea about any issues with mental health at all. Yeah, and you're a sales manager in a large technology company, so you know, all-round successful fella, and people that I think would look up to you and find your story inspirational, which I certainly did. So
cool.
Thank you for that. Are you still world champion?
No, I'm not actually. So I have been world champion. I've been world champion 6 times. I'm British champion at the moment still. So I'm British champion still. But now I didn't compete last year.
I thought that was it. You was it too far away?
I can't.
You couldn't be bothered flying.
It was the last time it was far west coast of America. Yeah. And it was, and literally with work and some other stuff, I could only have gone there for a few days. So I would have been literally flying in, flying out. And yeah, just the cost and everything just became a bit ridiculous. So I didn't win last time. So you can't win it if you're not there, mate. So but unfortunately, I've won it a few times. I've won it 6 times over the past 12 years, I think.
Yeah, and it's world indoor rowing champion.
Yeah, mate, it's on those rowing machines that everyone probably walks past at the gym and tries not to go anywhere near
because they're too painful.
But yeah, so it's obviously weird. It's the largest indoor participation sport apparently, but it's still obviously pretty niche. But yeah, it is what it is.
And there are YouTube videos of you I've seen ruining a machine. I've never seen a rowing machine bounce off the floor before.
Of me in varying stages of distress, yeah.
Yeah, so well done on that. Will you compete again this year? Or is it a yearly thing? Or?
It's going to be virtual, so yeah, I'm currently planning on doing it. I've got to see what the format is. The virtual format, I'll be honest, I like to race. You know, I like the racing bit's what brings out the best of me. So doing it in this, I did the British Championships in this room, right. So all logged onto the computer. So that's a bit weird, right? Yeah. Plus, I kind of like to raise people face. So we'll see. But if not, I'm trying to sort of break some of the records. I might do a 24-hour row. I'm planning on doing maybe something with quite a famous rower actually, but I won't say anything just yet. So I might do a 24-hour row when he gets back from. He's currently filming SAS, Celebrity SAS or something. So we'll see.
Wow, and that must be painful.
I can't even contemplate the 24-hour thing, right? It does sound awful, but I think I've read that sort of. I know we've got mixed feelings on that kind of David Goggins book, but the one thing it did make me think, and don't get me wrong, it's not 100% a Bible, but there's some great stuff in there. Yeah. And it did get me thinking about really kind of the discomfort zone and how do I kind of test myself beyond, 4 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever the kind of records I've had in the past are. How do I do something that I just don't think I'm probably capable of? So really test myself that way.
He did end up in a mess in hospital, though.
Don't get me wrong.
With an enlightened moment that he pushed himself a little too hard.
Yeah, but a lot of
he skimmed across that bit in his book.
But a lot of the stuff I do on the rower comes back to, or certainly a lot of the stuff I do lately comes back to some of the sort of mental health challenges I've got.
Yeah.
Like, we'll probably talk about it a bit, but the rowing machine, it's right behind me. That's why I keep going like that, if you're wondering. Yeah. The rowing machine is, it's like my sort of daily barometer. It's the thing that proves, it overrules my mind a little bit, because, as we'll probably talk about, I worry about my health a lot, like excessively.
So let's start about that, and we'll come back to the rowing machine being a barometer.
Yeah, okay.
I like that. So give us the background of your story.
So it was a year. It was the same year I won the World Championships. The same year I broke the world record. So I was in good nick, and that would have been February. And then about June time, I'd had a bit of a night out, so I was a little bit hungover the following morning. I was just really kind of on edge, really kind of fidgety and stuff like that, and just gradually started to sort of wind myself up a little bit. And I basically convinced, I thought I was having a heart attack. Absolutely convinced I was having a heart attack. In fact, it's probably worth giving a little bit of background here. So my dad died of a heart attack when he was 47. Okay. My uncle, his brother, a couple of years later, also died of a heart attack when he was 47. I was 47 last Saturday. So this sort of date, this age, I guess, has been looming in my sort of windscreen for a period of time, and I think it was just nibbling away at me that I was getting towards the age my dad died, and dad died suddenly, right?
And Graham, I would say that's completely logical. Do you know what I mean? That with those numbers, I think anyone would be hard pressed not to stop. Yeah,
it's logical, but it's also illogical, because the problem with things like anxiety and OCD, compulsive things, is they focus on the worst case scenario, they catastrophize.
Yeah.
So if you sat here and said, well, your dad died at 47, your uncle died at 47, what are the odds of that? It feels like the odds are quite high because it happened.
But they're not.
But the odds are actually infinitesimal, right? Or whatever that word is. So the reality is the odds of me dying at 47 are very, very low, but it just feels that way. It's like when you look at the lottery and go, well, you've got numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they're never going to come in. It's got the same odds. So the brain misrepresents the odds of it happening because it's so close to me and it's so real. So
completely understandable from someone else. I get it.
Yeah. So that was looming, and I just started to get a little bit aware of my health. Hit your 40s, right? It's a terrible, terrible age, particularly for a male. You start to feel very vulnerable. You're no longer immortal. Right, things start falling off you, or aching, or you start moving slower. All this stuff, right? Your best is behind you. You see that on the road machine. I'm getting slower, right? And all these things kind of just accumulate. And then on this fateful morning, I was convinced I was having a heart attack. Chest pains, couldn't talk, I couldn't stand up, completely, gone. It was just petrified. So called an ambulance. They carted me off in an ambulance to hospital. Checked me all over. Heart rate was freaky high. Like my resting heart rate's normally about 50 odd. I was sat at about 120, and basically just carted me off to hospital. And it turns out there was nothing. They couldn't find anything wrong with me. Right? It was so that they suggested it was either an episode or could be from the mind. Right? Could be a panic attack. Yeah. Similar sort of thing happened a little while later. Basically, I ended up in casualty. I took myself there this time, but ended up in casualty. And it just the evidence started to build up that this was in my head, right? This was a panic attack. But I would have never thought it could be so real. I was convinced I was dying, right? I was sobbing. I needed, when's the ambulance going to get here, right? And as you said, I'm 6'6", 110 kilos, thought I was pretty indestructible, probably had zero empathy, or at least zero awareness of mental health before that. I probably would have gone, anxiety, don't worry about it, or depression, oh come on, it can't be that bad. All little sort of flippant comments like that I think are very easy to make. And I'm not going to say people like that just don't. I'm not going to criticize people who say that. I just think they don't know. It's not. It's a lack of awareness. And once your eyes have been open to the complexity and the magnitude of some of this stuff, you never look back, right? I think my eyes have been unfortunately open. So since then, I've got basically I've got a thing called health anxiety. So I pretty much think I'm dying of something every day, which sounds a ridiculous thing to admit. It's basically hypochondria, which used to be the butt of jokes, right? I kind of remember a joke that used to be, I went to the doctors, he said I've got hypochondria. I was like, oh, not that as well. So it's like, kind of just, it's a sort of thing that you would have made fun of, but it's an obsessive compulsion with your health. So if at the moment, I think I've got a bit of numbness in the back of my hand, a bit of numbness in the back of my, so I'm convinced there's something going on, right? I'm convinced brain tumor or so there's something going on. But the chances are it's not, right? The chances are I might just have a little nerve thing, or I might have pulled a muscle or something like that, but you just focus immediately on the worst case thing. And this is every day. So that was a few years ago. I'm in a state now.
You're still going through this. You're still going through this every day.
Yeah, but I think I'm more. I don't think once you've kind of suffered from anxiety or I don't know depression so much. I don't really suffer from depression as much, but anxiety, I don't think it ever goes away. I think you become much better at compartmentalizing it. And one of the things that really helped there is I did cognitive CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. And she would kind of say, right, you're getting chest pains. Here's a list of what you think it is. And I'd be like, heart attack, top of the list, obviously, it's got to be a heart attack. And then what else could it be? And then you compile these two lists, and the list of bad things is about 2. And the more realistic list of all the other stuff it could be is about 20 long. And you go, well, why do you think it's that when that's the 0.001% chance and all this other stuff? And it just teaches you to frame it a bit more logically. But don't get me wrong, I still wake up and go, that could be something really bad. But then you just kind of, you almost learn to just put it in the background a little bit rather than let it dominate.
I guess. Is that,
yeah. So I don't think it goes away. I still have those thoughts. I think I just deal with them slightly better. And don't get me wrong, I still have a lapse. So there was probably a couple of weeks ago, I was just sat here and when you get the feeling, you get that kind of panic feeling. It's like, if you've been on a plane and suddenly the plane has dropped, hit some turbulence, whatever, and it just drops and your stomach just goes up into your throat. Yeah. It's just, that's how it feels, right? I'm just sat here going, whoa, and you just really kind of panic. Yeah, and then when you get that feeling, it can then go one or two ways. But I've learned sort of little tricks to deal with it. Back then, the tricks were pretty crude and pretty desperate measures, right? I had apps. It was like colouring stuff in. You have these apps where it'd be a black and white picture, and you do stuff like that, and the colour would come out and things like that. All really quite desperate measures. I'd have headphones in. I'd be, it used to dominate entire days. Whereas now it's more of a quick tactic to sort of, how do I deal with it? How do I move on? But it's not gone away. So
back to that comment you made, and I did note on Instagram you mentioned something that was really interesting to me, based on my experience. But you said that your rowing has become a daily barometer.
Yeah.
And I remember you posting that I don't know, something about you monitor your heart rate closely, don't you? And you were talking about how stress had affected it. So since this is going on LinkedIn, we should probably pull work stuff into this somewhere. So how does work, stress, change at work affect your rowing and your daily barometer?
Well, so I don't train to my heart rate, but I watch it. And actually, we'll go back to the rowing thing. So when it was at its worst, I couldn't train at home because I thought I was going to die. I literally would only train at the gym right next to the defibrillator because I was that panicky.
This is madness as well, Graham. Is that you think you've got a heart problem? Madness is probably the wrong word to use, isn't it?
Yeah. No.
This is that wasn't my point. This is fascinating. Is that you think you've got a problem with your heart, and then you smash yourself on a rowing machine.
I know, but it's kind of. I'll talk about. Well, this is the concept. You have these things called safety-seeking behaviours, right? And they're kind of things that are positive to you at the time, but they're actually negative to the condition. So it might be something like, when I was feeling really anxious, I put my headphones in, I'd listen to an app, because that made me feel better. That I felt that was going to address the issue. But then the lady at CBT go, if you think you're having a heart attack, what do you think putting your headphones is going to do? So it's not going to address what you think the issue is, and all it actually does is reinforce there's a problem. Because it's you saying to you, if I don't do this, something bad will happen. And it's the same with OCD. People go back and say, I've left the gas on. If I don't go and check the gas, or if I don't have this in a particular way, it's what you think will happen if you don't do that. But the rowing for me is, you're right, but if I really thought I had a heart attack, or was going to have a heart attack, why would I jump on a rowing machine? But for me, it's that, well, if I get through this, there can't be that much wrong. It's like a tick in the box. So I remember training, watching my heart rate going, literally thinking, this has hurt my heart, got chest pains, but then watching my heart and going, but the number's actually all right there. So if I just go off the data rather than off my feelings,
Yeah,
I can carry on. And you get through
more
it. And
evidence. You're building evidence that you're
yeah, exactly. Exactly. I try and be evidence based, and this, in fact, I am normally very evidence based. But this kind of hypochondria thing is just the complete opposite of that. It goes against all of that. It's emotion based. But it's the same with work. You have a certain level of, we're kind of operating. If you think of like a rev meter, we're kind of operating, and the issues come when you go into the red line, and lots of things contribute to how many revs you're using. It could be personal issues, it could be work stress. We're end of financial year, right? It's our pretty much last selling week of the quarter, so this is an intense week, and all these things contribute to the overall load. And then it doesn't necessarily need to be one big thing that pushes it over. You're just more vulnerable that particular stage because you're having to process all this other stuff and focus on all this other stuff. It just leaves the door open maybe for that thought at that moment in time. So yeah, it all builds up, it all contributes.
So that can just, that one little thing could tip you into allowing that.
And it might not be the thing
awareness,
thought,
I guess. It's having that awareness.
It just happens to be the thing that crossed the line. It doesn't necessarily have to be a big thing or a typical thing, but for whatever reason, and I'll tell you, anything that makes you more vulnerable. I do still drink, but I don't drink a lot. I drink rarely, but do a good job of it when I do it. But because I know that, the following day I'm a mess, right? I'm vulnerable, mentally vulnerable, and that's a day that I'm probably going to have really high anxiety. So I don't do it a lot, but I do it. Still want to do it occasionally, but I don't have a couple of pints anymore. I either drink nothing or I get drunk.
Fair enough. So how has it affected work at all?
So again, and the mad thing is, most of the time,
from looking in, I mean, this is one of the challenges, I think, isn't it, with mental health, that we all have a really good way of protecting all that stuff, don't we? We have the corporate facade, and no one sees it.
Well, no one knows, right? And to be fair, had I not mentioned it, probably a lot of people at work wouldn't know. No. But there are sometimes you just sat there in a fog. I had quite a bad panic attack at work once. No one really knew, because basically the guy was sat next to you, so I just sort of sat there and went, "Ooh," and he was like, "You all right?" I was like, "No, I'm not." And basically, I managed to get myself in the lift. I didn't want to get in the lift because I thought I was going to die in the lift. I didn't want to be in a confined space. Got myself in the lift. My other half met me at reception, took me to hospital in a taxi. But as far as anyone else at work are concerned, they didn't know anything about it, right? But I just walked off the premises. Eventually, got myself the courage to walk off the premises and gone to hospital. And quite often you get this thing called presenteeism. So quite often, not so much, but back then when it was particularly bad, you kind of sit here almost in a daze, right? Quite foggy, couldn't concentrate on stuff. And to the outside world, I might be doing stuff, but you just maybe just be top feeding off your inbox or just looking busy, right? We're not effective at all. And I think that happens a lot, right? So just because someone comes in the office doesn't mean they're okay. The signs can still be there. And if anything, sometimes that kind of encouragement or that pressure to come in the office, or I can't take time off because I'm feeling a bit frazzled, pushes you over that red line. And rather than taking one day off here, you end up taking 3-4 weeks off here. And what's been really positive in HP, actually, we've seen a couple of senior leaders above my level say, I had to take Tuesday off. I took Tuesday off because for what I just felt, I was just, it was all getting too much. And to have a VP or a director in the org say that is quite liberating, because anything, I tell you what, if I need to take a head day, I can take a head day, because it's okay and people understand it and people get it. So that's been a really positive, and that's not a HP wide initiative. That's just individuals who've had the courage to sort of admit that. But that's massively powerful. Don't show that vulnerability is massively powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And you've gone on to do is it mental health first aid course? Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about that and what that involves, and I guess how people, because we've all got this corporate facade and we make it really difficult, we don't let people in work. How do employees spot someone who needs help?
Okay. So
what does that help be?
It's exactly that, right? So help can mean all sorts of things. So mental health first aid, first of all, 2-day course. And it's about spotting the signs and understanding the help that's available and how you can assist these people, because you're not medically trained, right? So if someone comes to me with a problem, I'm not medically trained, but my skill set or my role is to prevent them doing harm to themselves or to other people and to guide them to help. Basically, it's kind of the role, right? So it's almost like a triage when you go to the hospital. You're the kind of first person you see in reception will just kind of assess the problem. But key thing is make sure they're not a danger to themselves or to other people. It's all in confidence. You can be approached in any way. I've had people approach me on Skype, but people approach me through other people. And literally it's looking for the signs, just being, a lot of the time it's listening, it's just listening and letting people talk, and then perhaps sharing some experiences as well. I think almost everyone on the course had a story to tell.
Yeah.
There was probably 15 or 20 of us, and we all had some experience or some driver as to why we wanted to be there, be it personal or someone close to us.
Here's a question. So everyone has sort of a baseline, don't they, of mood.
Yeah.
And you have days where you're up, you have days where you're down, and then you get either flat or going up if you're lucky. At what point does it become a problem? And when is it just a bit of anxiety? Everyone gets anxious at some point. Everyone gets low at some point. When does it become an issue?
Yeah, and that's a really difficult question to answer, because the answer is it depends, right? But you're right. A little bit of anxiety, it's healthy actually. We all need stress. That certain amount of stress. You go to the gym, you stress your muscles, they grow. You're in work, you need a certain amount of pressure, the right kind of pressure to perform to your best. And it's basically got this kind of bell curve. If you're this end of the pressure, there's not much applying, you probably don't perform. But if you're at the other end where there's far too much, you break and you don't perform. But it's finding that optimum amount of pressure. And it's about, I'd say the skill is looking at yourself and looking for the triggers and looking for the signs. Classic signs will be, your sleep starts to go. If you're not sleeping very well, if you normally sleep well and your sleep starts to become really broken or short, you're not sleeping as much, classic sign that you're either overtraining or overreaching or doing something that your body's struggling to cope with. Appetite going, change in mood, irritability, all these things, they're all signs, and everyone's signs will be different. So it's about just keeping an eye on yourself and saying, actually, self-assessment, I think, is quite a key thing. Probably something I didn't do when I was young, because I was like, hey, I'm indestructible, right? Whereas as you get older, and certainly once you've experienced it once, you start to recognize the signs and try and nip them in the bud. But yeah, I think it's just looking for those signs. But there is no one particular stride. There is, if say for example, depression is like a checklist, and it's have you more than 3 times in the past week, and it's things like not wanting to do activities, things like that. But you're right, just feeling, we all feel up, we all feel down. It's when it's a consistent trend or a consistent pattern and it's affecting the rest of your life, other parts of your life, and that's when it could be an issue. And what I'd say is, if you're not sure, talk it through with someone. There shouldn't, there's the stigma that probably was there when my dad was alive, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it doesn't feel like it's there anymore.
Certainly getting a lot better, isn't it?
Oh yeah, there's some really positive advocates in sort of celebrities, in public life, in public figures. The working environment is much more understanding. Blokes, talk to your mates. Come on, let's do that. That's not, we're all here for each other, and you'd be amazed. When I started to sort of reveal at work that I'd had some challenges, the number of people who just want to quiet chat with me. And the scary thing is, I think that I did this video at work and it went out. I think the following week I had 3 blokes want to have a conversation, want to have a coffee with me. And 2 of them were mid-20s and probably the most confident fellows I would ever imagine. Right? I would, and as you said earlier on, from the outside world, you would have thought they had life sussed, right? They were just breezing through, upward trajectory. One was a really ambitious guy within HPE and was destined for great things. Another guy, really strong sportsman. I would never have guessed. And it was really, it was quite emotional really for me to think that me talking to them had given them the confidence to then talk to me. Yeah. Me talking had given them the confidence. So don't assume that no one else is going through this. The chances are, statistically, almost everyone will go through this. So you're probably talking to someone who will have some experience and will have some empathy for you.
Yeah, agreed. So what does What have you seen companies do well? So obviously we've mentioned the mental health first aider, which is a program. Well, I know the company that you and I both work for give us free access to Headspace. Do you use that at all?
Yeah, I do, and I use it every night, to be honest. So I don't necessarily do the mindfulness. I do some of that sometimes. There's some good stuff there, but I usually just get to sleep because one of the classic things with anxiety and things is your sleep isn't great. So I don't sleep fantastically, but that helps me get to sleep every night. We've got some great stuff available through the Employee Assistance Program. Yeah. So it's probably an underutilized resource there, but that's available to everyone. We've got the mental health first aiders. We do a lot of well-being and wellness stuff. It's getting more and more. Could we do more? Yeah, we could. But there's at least one guy.
The companies aren't doing anywhere near as much as.
Yeah, agreed. And the problem is sometimes with mental health, the problem is it sometimes falls between stools a little bit. It falls between HR and well-being a little bit, and then can sometimes struggle to find a home. Whereas actually, it's kind of something that permeates all levels, I think. But I think they're getting their head around it, and there's a lot more support, particularly at the moment where it's difficult, right? It's any change is challenging, but to be locked away or semi-locked away in our homes, it's starting to get. It was dark this morning when I got up. It'd probably be dark when I walk away from my computer. So, and I know there's an active project underway at the moment to think, right, how do we do things differently as we're moving into this sort of darker, colder, more miserable time of year, right? How do we give people additional support, or what can we do to really focus on people's well-being? So all can always do more.
Yeah, a lot of it's individual responsibility.
The best thing they can do, the absolute best thing that organisations can do, is allow their staff to be vulnerable. It is not make it a problem if someone says, "Look, I'm completely frazzled today. If I don't, I just need to just lie on the sofa and watch Netflix. I'm sorry. That's all I can do today."
And that's the norm, is it? Yeah. So
I'm an active guy, right? So if I'm just going to sit there all day and veg out, there's something wrong with me. But sometimes you just need that kind of decompression. And like, as I said earlier on, to have a VP or director in the org do it, you say, well, that's really powerful. So I think it's that kind of advocacy and that kind of setting the example is probably the most powerful thing. Courses are great, right? It's great to learn more about it and encourage people to go there. But again, there's still that stigma for people even attending a course about mental health if there's not that positive environment or that positive atmosphere that it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. So coming to that then, how do you manage this on a daily basis? What routines do you adopt or mechanisms for, I guess, you've got to keep alert, I should imagine, because if you're saying you've got this thought that could, if you let a barrier down or you're in a particular stressful time, it might creep in. You must have mechanisms for keeping alert and healthy. Can you give any advice on that sort of stuff?
So originally it was I saw a psychiatrist, and I was actually on medication for a while, but I probably wouldn't advocate that unless it's the only way out, because what I actually found with that is when I came off that, there are much better ways of achieving the same thing. So I'm not going to sit here and say if you're told to medicate, don't medicate, but if you're unsure, if you're borderline, certainly try and think about, are there other ways I can manage this? And what I took it on myself really right from the start is this is something I'm going to beat. So I read up on it. I was determined to understand it. I wasn't going to just kind of let it beat me. So I read a lot. There's some great books out there. Learned a lot of the tactics, tried to get my head thinking, because it's about reframing and about getting your mind thinking in a more logical way. So the CBT for me was really powerful because, as I said, I'm quite data driven. So when you actually, we had a whiteboard and we were putting things up on the whiteboard and looking at things, and I'm going, yeah, you're right, aren't you? You have to be an idiot to disagree with that. And you kind of almost have to get it to that point where you think, right, okay, you've laid it out very logically and makes sense. And CBT is really powerful for anxiety and depression because it does give you that evidence base. Routine is good, sleep is good. The more sleep you can get, the better. And I'll be honest, I know a lot of people have really struggled with lockdown, and I get that. For me, lockdown's been pretty positive, simply because I'm getting, on average, about 45 minutes more sleep than I would have got because I no longer have a 2-hour commute. I'm still sat on my computer at 7:30 in the morning. I'm still working, probably doing more work than ever actually, but I'm getting more sleep at the same time, and I'm also getting to exercise like a more manageable time of the day. In the past, it would have been get home at 5, 6 o'clock, and then on the rowing machine. Was now I'm doing it in my lunch hour. So it's routine. Exercise is brilliant. Sleep is brilliant. Food, water, or just looking after yourself makes such a difference. And I think that's why obviously I'm a bit more vulnerable on days maybe when you're hungover or when you're ill or when something else is undermining your power a little bit. But yeah, for me, routine, those little tactics, those little tricks, self-awareness, looking for the signs, knowing my triggers, knowing the things that are going to set me off. I actually thought my birthday would set me off, but it's actually been all right with that. It's been quite positive. I avoided getting drunk on my birthday because I thought the last thing I want to do is be vulnerable the day after I'm 47, the day after I'm this age that I've been dreading. So I did avoid that, and that was probably weakness. Sometimes it's good to kind of face them. If you start to build these things up, you actually make it worse. So sometimes it's just better to say, look, I'm not afraid of you. I'm not going to fear this because it's irrational. Because I probably wasn't the best way to deal with it on my birthday, but yeah, I did. Right, I took that way out.
And if you came through it well, you dealt with it.
Exactly, and like I say, I'm quite at ease with the number now. I'm only a week in, right? But or a few days into it, but I'm quite easy. And the one good thing, I've got 3 cousins from my Uncle David's side who are still alive and kicking. So yeah. I mean, mum's still going strong. So hopefully I've got a bit of more than my dad. But yeah, so yeah, all routine, good nutrition. I'll tell you what, little things. So you find little things that work for me. Eating loads of vegetables. I have these powdered greens things. I put powdered greens in everything. It's just, for whatever reason, I just think that works. The key thing is, if you think it works, it works. It's kind of as simple as that.
The opposite is true as well, isn't it? Of course. Yeah, the nocebo. Yeah, you think something.
Yeah. But what I say is, don't sort of. It's easy to feel sorry for yourself when these things happen, and I get that, right? I've had days lying in a darkened room, just thinking, why me, right? But it's also treat it as a challenge, face it head on, right? Because that way you're actually starting to address the fear that was the root cause of it. And I'm talking quite personally from an anxiety perspective. I know there's all sorts of aspects to mental health and they all have their different challenges, but I can only really talk personally about anxiety. But if you face that fear or you stand it down a little bit, then it does help to kind of undermine it and take away its root.
Yeah. I wonder if when you hit 48, it'll all disappear.
I'll probably die now, my luck, but but yeah, you're right. It will be like we sort of make a joke of it, all the cousins. But one of them was like, "Hey, 48, yeah, I've broken the jinx." But it's true, right? When you think about it, statistically, it's just another age, right? I've probably got a 1 in 100 chance, same as any other 46-year-old dying in the next year. And as my doctor keeps saying, you can't do any more than you're doing. He says, you don't drink excessively, you don't smoke, you eat well, you exercise like an animal every day. What more could you do? So,
yeah. Exactly. So there's going to be a big party when you're 48.
Yeah, mate, you'll be invited. Come on to that.
Brilliant. Let's have a look at the questions I had for you. I think we've covered most of it. Is there anything any departing words you would like to share with anyone that might need to at the moment?
I think I've covered a lot of it, I reckon, just in my ramblings. But yeah, my key thing would be, the key things I've learned is that it's incredibly common. So don't sit there feeling isolated or thinking I'm the only person suffering from this or whatever, because the chances are, I reckon, 7 or 8 out of 10 people are having or have had some sort of experience, and it will be people you've never expected, people you think are omnipotent, absolute sort of legends who don't have a weakness. We've all got a weakness, right? And what we show in the office, on social media, whatever, that's only part of the story, right? There's a whole different thing going on under the surface for everyone. So don't be afraid to talk to people. Be there for other people as well. It's really powerful for someone to listen and not judge. Yeah. But also what it says, the more that people are confident and empowered to speak about their own experiences, the more other people will, and the more it will just become normal, and the more it'll be, I've sprained my elbow, or I've been a bit depressed. It'll become as nonchalant as that, right? If someone there'd be no stigma if you break your leg. So why should there be a stigma if you've got depression or anxiety? And that's where we need to get to. And we're making huge leaps and bounds. Like I say, some really big personalities, sports personalities, people like that coming out and showing their soul and showing their problems. And the more real examples we have in our own families or in our own circle, in our groups, that's even more powerful, right? Because they're here, they're your support network. So just encourage to do that. Ask for help. You can beat it, or you can at least learn to manage it. So there's so many resources out there, apps, videos, podcasts, books. Seek it out. Take it on as a mission. Take it on as a challenge. A lot of people who'll be on LinkedIn will be very successful in their career. It's another skill you can learn. It's another way. It's another something you can succeed at, or at least conquer. So that's about it, mate. Really, I don't know, ramble, but I'm just trying to be from the hip a little bit. We kind of said, should we prep? And we said, no, let's not prep. In fact, you turned the camera on the second I sat down.
And that was the right thing to do, because it's clear that you're passionate about it, and it just flowed really well.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. No, I'd like to say, I think one of the most positive things I can do is just talk about it, right? And then just let people know that, like you say, some relatively big hairy lump can suffer from problems. So
I class you as a Z-list celebrity.
There must be several alphabets down before we get there.
But yeah, God bless you for doing it. I think it's a brave thing to do. I really appreciate it. I got a lot out of it. I knew your story was interesting and inspirational, and hopefully there'll be someone. Worst that can happen is that you've raised awareness. Other than that, there's someone who sat there that needs help and just
if anyone does see this, right, if I see something that I think is a bit of a sign on Twitter or Insta or something, I'll always try and sort of message someone in the background and just say, you don't know me, but we can have a chat. And if someone is watching this and they want to have a chat, and if they don't know me, it doesn't matter, right? We can still have a conversation. They might feel more comfortable talking to me if they don't know me. Just reach out, and I'll always do my best to try and find some time for people.
You're a legend, Graham. We'll finish there. I'll pause.
Cheers, buddy.
And then I'll have a quick chat to you afterwards.
All right. Cheers, Dan.